Hey, everybody. Hey, this week's going to be a little bit different. Paul and I decided to take a different approach and kind of put the infinite banking concept discussion on hold for just a week. We'll be back at it next week. But this week, we want to welcome somebody as a guest to talk about something that's a pretty serious topic, but something that's definitely dear and near to our hearts and probably yours as well. So we'd like to introduce Paul Hutchinson. Paul is a successful business owner, investor, and philanthropist. He's dedicated his life to creating a world where every child can experience safety, freedom, and hope. In 2017, Paul founded the Child Liberation Foundation and has led or held a critical role in over 70 undercover rescue missions in 15 countries. Through his foundation and others that he has helped to start and fund, over 5,000 children have now been liberated. Paul is the primary investor and executive producer of the film Sound of Freedom. The film highlights one of the largest child rescue missions in history, with over 120 victims being liberated, in which Paul himself held a pivotal role. So if you have not seen the movie Sound of Freedom, I highly recommend that. Any children probably 11 years old or older should see that. I took all of my kids, except the two youngest, and I know Paul has seen it as well. And the movie is so powerful, and it's created such an impact in our country and around the world, which is so good to see. I believe to date about 250 million gross international, but kind of was a blockbuster hit, and was held up from release for about 5 years, as you'll learn. So we hope you guys enjoy this interview with Mr. Paul Hutchinson and take some good things away from it. Thanks. All right. Well, welcome back, everybody. Hey, we've got a really special guest today. Only our second guest ever on this podcast with nearly 100 episodes. Paul and I have brought on another Paul, Paul Hutchinson. So you just heard his bio just prior to this. So we're going to go ahead and bring him in, introduce him, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're kind of veer off the normal financial path today and really talk about something more geared towards the heart and really, what's going on in this world that I think needs more awareness. Needs to be a lot more awareness created around this, and hopefully some ways that we can all get involved in our own way. So, hey, I'd like to welcome Paul Hutchinson to the show. Paul, thanks for making time for us.
Thanks, David. Good to see you. Good to see you, Paul.
Good to see you.
Yeah. So, Paul, tell us, really, you created a foundation. So we're going to have another episode with you talking about your business life, which you're a very successful entrepreneur, business owner, created an incredibly successful investment fund that you retired from, years ago, and you turned to philanthropy. So you created a foundation all around the child sex trafficking going on in this world, which is an unbelievably heinous crime that I don't think there's enough attention being paid to. I for one certainly didn't know a whole lot about it before your movie came out, The Sound of Freedom, and we'll get into that as well. But can you tell us a little bit about why you started this foundation and what your mission is?
Absolutely. In fact, since your audience is here more to talking about finance stuff, I'm gonna tie it all in to that. So years ago, in my early 20s, I had a mentor. He said, Paul, if you make a decision today, he was mentoring me on building my companies, on financial success. And he said, make a decision today that you're going to donate a huge percentage of your money to charity. It'll make all the difference in your business. And I'm like, well, what is a huge percentage? And the average person donates about a little less than 2% of their money every year to charity. And they say, well, maybe rich people donate more. No, they don't. Actually, millionaires statistically donate less percentage-wise, less than 2%. And it makes me sick because they've got so much more to work with. And he said, make a decision to donate not just 2%, not 5%, but upwards of 10, 15, even 20% of your money to charity. And that alone will he said, if as you're building your companies and you're working on financial success, he said, you can call it karma You can call it God, you can call it the universe, call it whatever you want to. There's a higher power very interested in us doing good, and you will be amazed at the financial success that will happen because of it. He said, now don't do it just for the goal of getting rich, right? Do it out of the charity of your own heart, and you'll be amazed at what comes back to you. And I said, can I just wait until I'm rich to donate? Right? I mean, right now, if I took that same money, let's say I'm earning $2,000 a month, right? I said, what if I took that 20%? I have to live on $1,600 a month. What if I took that money and just reinvested back into my company, right? Then my company grows faster. Then I'll have more money to give when I'm rich, right? He
Right.
goes, no, it doesn't work that way. He said, start now. Start right now donating not only your money. And I'm sitting here whining to him, right? He said, not just your money. He said, donate upwards of 20% of your time. I'm like, holy crap. I thought that I was going to use my extra time to earn that extra money that I'm giving away. Now you want me to give away some of my time too? He said, yeah, that's the key is you do that, you will see abundance in your life like you've never imagined. And so I did. I started donating, but I didn't know where. I'm like, okay, do I just give it to this guy that's is asking me for drug money? I don't know if he's going to spend it. Over time, I finally decided to focus on children. I donated a lot of time and money to a lot of different child-related charities. I was on the Make-A-Wish board of directors in the Utah area for about 7 years. I was the incoming chairman for Make-A-Wish when I got a phone call that changed my whole life. And that phone call was from our attorney general. He knew I donated a lot to child-related charities, and he said, Paul, I need to talk to you about something that's pretty dark. It's the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world, and good people don't even know that it's happening. He said there's a Homeland Security agent who's identified some children in Cartagena, Colombia, that are being trafficked, sold for horrific things, for sex. I'm like, what? People are buying kids for what? And he said, yeah, this is the script that we loosely made The Sound of Freedom off. Now, if you've seen the movie, we took about 8 different rescue missions. We took a lot of different operators and put them all together into just a handful of characters. In the movie, my character was Pablo, the one that the Homeland Security agent said, if we can get Pablo to come, then, he can fund this. I'm not the only person that funded things. Glenn Beck and his entire audience helped to fund a lot of different things. But we needed to put that all into a single character. And same thing with Jim Caviezel's character and others. We put a lot of different things in there together. But in real life, what happened is he called me from the Homeland Security agent called me from Cartagena, Colombia. And he said, Paul, there's not just 20 children here. There's more than 50. I think there's more than 100 children in the surrounding in other cities in Colombia that we can rescue all 100 children on the same day. He said, I'd love to have your help if you're willing. And I said, I thought he needed money. I said, well, how much do you need? He said, I need you. Can you be in Colombia in 2 days? And he needed somebody who could effectively negotiate a multi-million-dollar real estate transaction. That was my background in real estate with these traffickers. One had a piece of property, wants to develop into a child brothel sex resort, in which he can make millions. He thought he can make tens of millions of dollars a year selling children to wealthy Americans. And
now you said wealthy Americans. I just want to interrupt your story for a second. When we're talking consumers of this crime, who are the biggest consumers?
I'm not going to say it's just wealthy ones. This sting, these traffickers were going to charge $100,000 membership fee to this resort they were building, and so their target was wealthy Americans. However, the crime itself is more rampant than you can imagine. And it's not just guys traveling to third world countries. As we've grown past the Child Liberation Foundation and into liberating humanity as a whole, our goal is to curb the demand side and to fix something that is significantly bigger than just a child being sold in a third world country. Literally 1 in every 4 women that you know right now, 1 in every 4 women have been a victim of sexual violence as a child. Average age is 52 years old when they start talking about it. So the average woman just holds it all in. Now, men, it's a little bit less. It's 1 in every 5, but that's still huge at some time in their life. And 1/4 of them under the age of 10 years old. And so there's this epidemic of generational trauma that's happening. And the most dangerous place for your kids is not, on a beach in Colombia. It's probably in a neighbor's basement. Man. Right? Or at their uncle's house. And so being aware of these things is super important. And this happens all around the world. In our own backyards, that if you have a solid, healthy nuclear family, that you pray together, you stay together, you help build your kids' self-esteem, that's the best way to keep them out of being trafficked. But more important than that, you need a relationship with your kids where they can easily come to you and say, "Hey, Dad, I feel uncomfortable when you tell me to hug Uncle Harry because of how he hugs me," or I don't feel good when I go to this friend's house because her brother touches me on the butt, or our babysitter is showing us pornography and tells us that we should trust her more than you. Your kids need to feel comfortable coming to you, and even more important than just those things, if something does happen, hey, I was at school and some older kids held me down and did this or that, or, I was at their house and this thing happened. They need to feel super safe with you as a parent and coming and talking to you about these things. Why? Not only so you can go take care of that problem, but more importantly, so that you can give that child the healing that they need at that age. The epidemic that we have in our society is the fact that so many people at 8, 9, 10, 11 years old have this trauma that they never share, that they hold inside, especially men. Men are notorious for never talking about it. They're like, that thing that happened when I was 8 by my uncle, and that makes me less of a man if I talk about that. No, it won't. You were 8. Right. It was a horrible thing that happened by somebody who was passing on their trauma to you. And by just talking about it, releases that trauma to the point where the chances of that trauma ever being passed on goes way, way down statistically. So just releasing that trauma, that alone will take away the demand side. If we can all get to the point where we can help these teenagers heal and these young adults heal before they ever pass that trauma on. Now, statistically, most people who dealt with trauma as a kid don't ever pass it on. Statistically, 2/3 of us, it may come out in low self-esteem, or anger issues, but it's not going to come. We're going to protect innocence at all costs. 2/3 of people but however, 1 out of every 3, if not given the healing help that they need, become contact offenders. So that's how we fix this problem, is by helping humanity heal.
Wow. So if you do the math, and maybe I'm doing the math incorrect, I don't know, but if 1 out of every 5 men have experienced this in their life, and 1 out of every 3 of those who have experienced it pass it on, that's 1 out of every 15 men pass that on, if I'm doing the math right.
Yeah.
That's frightening.
Yeah, it is. It is. And we just throw everybody in prison? No. People ask me a lot. They say, "Paul, how can you go 70 missions? How can you go face to face with somebody selling you a child and not have them see the hatred and the anger in your eyes?" And my answer surprises them, and it makes some people mad. It's this: I don't hate them. Now, don't get me wrong. I put my life in danger to ensure they never touch innocence again, right? However, what I wish more than anything is that we had a time machine and we could go back 5 or 10 years before they ever pass that trauma on, and said, what is going on in your life that makes you think that it's okay to take that road? and somehow give them that help before they ever. Now, once they've crossed that line, don't waste my oxygen anymore, right? You don't pass your trauma onto it. And this is not an excuse. Just because you went through crap as a child doesn't mean that it's an excuse. However, it is important that all of us come from a compassionate standpoint to people who have dealt with that trauma to help them heal through it. We do that, we'll save millions of children.
Now, did it take you a while to get to that point? Like, you've been on over 70 missions, and I've heard some stories about your missions, and I'm happy to hear more. How have those missions changed who you are as a person, and changed the way you view other people?
I will say this. Those missions have made me realize I don't want to get religious here, but Ephesians 6 talks about we don't fight flesh and blood. This is a fight against the darkness, the principalities of the evils of this world. I don't know the exact quote. I should probably memorize it, right? But that's really what I saw. This was not a battle of flesh and blood. This was not okay, you've got a gun, I've got a gun, you've got a knife. No, this was fighting evil in its rawest form. Yeah. And it took a different type of mentality and different type of energy to do so. And it took a connection with God to be able to just make it through all of that darkness. In fact, a beautiful story that I think that your audience will enjoy. If you saw the Sound of Freedom movie, the boats that came with all of the children. Okay. In real life, one of our operators was named Joseph, and you can go to Liberating Humanity and you can see an interview that I did with Joseph. But Joseph was a Krav Maga expert trainer, and he was one of the guys providing security on one of those boats that went to pick up the kids. Now, these boats were huge. There was 54 children loaded on 2 boats, plus all the traffickers, right? They're the size of school buses. And he realized the magnitude of the problem when all of these kids were being loaded on this boat, these 2 boats coming out. But as they were coming out on his boat, and I just found out about this recently, but it was so beautiful in my interview with him. He said one thing that wasn't brought up earlier that was just transformational. He said, as the boat was coming out, there was a bunch of the younger kids that were visibly scared to death. They were just, the traffickers had given them drugs, but the drugs were starting to wear off, and there was still a lot of anxiety of some of the younger kids. And so one of the older children who had been trafficked for a while, that kind of knew what was going on, he pulled all the kids together. And Joseph said he couldn't hear what he was saying because of the engine, but he pulled all the kids together, and they were all kind of in this circle. And then they all held hands. And the older victim, child, started to offer up a prayer. And I don't know what was said in that prayer, but little did they know that the answer was already in place.
Yep.
That they would not have to go through the pain and the horror that they were so scared of, that they were going to be rescued that day. And so that was a beautiful story of faith. And I think that the entire process is one of building faith in a better world, in a world where that kind of thing doesn't exist, in a world that we can all come together from a heart standpoint and help each other heal and help each other live a life that is free of that kind of evil in every way.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know I got to meet your beautiful and talented wife, Vanessa, as well, a couple weekends ago when we were all in Texas together, and it was great spending time with you guys. But I know.
Did you hear where I stole her from?
Oh, you got to tell this story. Okay.
This is awesome. Yeah. All right. So we met in Haiti. I tell people meeting a beautiful Colombian actress is kind of cool, but when she's donating her time at an orphanage in Haiti, that's my girl, right? She's freaking amazing. And so if look up Henry Cavill, just type in Henry Cavill on your phone right now, guys, and Henry Cavill. That's the actor who plays Superman, right? He's the Superman, versus Batman, Superman, right? That's Henry Cavill. Well, Henry was at Vanessa's my wife. Her full name is Ada Vanessa, Hada, Ada Vanessa, but Vanessa's actually her last name. He was at her work almost every day, and they went on a few dates. I mean, not big; they weren't like girlfriends, whatever, but they went on a few dates, and then she dropped him for me.
You
I
stole
stole
Superman's girl.
What?
He's a pretty big dude too.
Big. Yeah, but he's not trained in
she
Israeli hand-to-hand combat like you
she
are.
had on her phone his phone number was there. Henry Cavill, my future husband.
Huh?
I changed it to Henry Cavill, the fake Superman.
Yeah.
So
He's a good guy, but yeah,
that's a hard
that's
story
my
to
claim.
top.
That's my mic drop. Boop.
Yeah,
Right
what else
on.
do you need? Yeah. Well, that's
So-
awesome. But I wanted to bring her up because I think she deals a lot in just pulling those kids out of that situation is just the first step, right? In that recovery. You recover them physically, and then you guys go to work on recovering them emotionally, spiritually, every other way. Describe that part of this whole process and your foundation.
Yeah, I tell people the work that we do in rescuing the kids and pulling them out of hell, that's the easy job. You know, the hard job is the next 5 or 10 or 20 years in dealing with a challenged child that's had that kind of trauma. What's beautiful is that knowing that they went through that kind of trauma, it's easy to immediately start getting the help that they need and the psychological help and helping them bounce back to what I was talking about earlier. The most difficult trauma to heal is one where somebody in your own family dealt with abuse at 10, 11 years old and never talked about it and never got the help that they needed. So it's traumatic for these children, but interestingly enough, there's a large percentage of the kids that either the parents were involved or the parents were oblivious to it. And
that was my question. I was going to ask you, Paul, is, generally what were the circumstances, kidnapped out of their bedroom, like we've kind of heard about in the United States sometimes, where the guy came in the window and then took her into the mountains in Utah or Idaho or wherever it was. I can't remember her name.
Yeah, Elizabeth Smart.
Elizabeth Smart, that's it. And years later, there she is. So is it more than you think 50% there's a relative involved and or is it not really known?
Yeah. Southeast Asia, in Thailand, more than half the children that were rescued there were sold by their own families. And, in a situation like that, you can't put them back into a home that they're going to be sold again,
Right.
And so you've got to find a healthy house for that. The majority of the actual trafficked children come from broken homes, from runaways, from a very broken foster care program, internationally, everywhere. If you've got a broken family, that's a sure sign for a potential abuse of the children. And so yes, those things happen from a healthy family. A lot of the people listening are like, okay, we've got a healthy family together. The things that you can do to keep your kids safe from stuff like that is, number one, the relationship with your kids where they can talk to you about, what's going on at school or with the babysitter, et cetera. But when you're traveling, be very careful with their social media. A lot of parents don't understand that these predators, they are really proficient in using social media to identify at-risk kids or identify kids that are maybe traveling without their parents, or identifying what certain schedules are for the kids so they know where they're going to be at what times, etc. So those are all we had a takedown in Cancun, where one of the traffickers that was selling kids as young as 7 years old, that he was bringing in new recruits by going through social media and identifying girls and even young boys that seemed to be traveling without parental supervision, even if they were 13, 14 years old or whatever. So that happens a lot. So be super aware of, there's no reason to have your kids have their social media that's accessible to everybody. Make it so that the only people that can see their stories is their friends. That should be enough. They don't need the whole world to see where they are.
Yeah, and I'll add something else I just learned about today. Apparently, with the new iOS update,
Yes,
it
the
automatically
contacts.
selects something where if somebody brings their iPhone and touches it with your iPhone, it transfers your contact information to their phone.
Right.
Strangers could walk up to you and to the
Pump your
kids and
phone.
just tap their phones
Just
and
shut
they've
that
got their
off
info.
yesterday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just discovered that, so that's
Yeah.
getting
So
shut off
shut that off,
immediately.
everybody.
Yeah, that's in
Good advice.
your AirDrop setting. So
Right.
yeah,
Yep.
get rid of that. Um,
So
Go ahead, Paul.
I was gonna say I wanted to just I recently saw the movie Paul, and I didn't get to see it in the theaters because of I don't really know why. My one of my best friends was like, Paul, you have, and he doesn't have kids, but great dude, Marine Corps officer. He's like, you have to see this movie. So I watched it recently. Phenomenal. I like the actor selection. The people I think that are of our mindset, great appeal of the movie. Like, can't believe this is happening. Unbelievable. It's you said I think in the other interview that I watched that it's like it's growing. This business of trafficking children is growing more than the drug business because you can sell a child multiple times a day, right? Um, Unfortunately, there's an element in our country, and maybe across the West, including Western Europe and other places where they're like, well, it's not really happening at that level, blah blah blah. And of course, they never said that about the movie Taken, right, with Liam Neeson, because maybe he's on
Yeah,
their
they're
side or something.
downplaying things, and then they're trying to run hit pieces on like yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's a shame. And I think most people can see through the noise to see the truth. But what is your response, I guess, to just that kind of garbage that's just out there now? And why are they? Why do it? Why say, hey, this isn't a big problem when it actually is?
Want to know the real answer?
Yes.
Always.
There's more people involved than we want to admit.
Yeah.
From a political standpoint, from a big media Hollywood standpoint,
Sure.
and this film goes against their narrative and starts conversations that they don't want to have people having. What are those conversations? What is child trafficking? Is it really happening? Is child abuse really as big of a deal? Is these conversations 2 years ago wasn't something that would be a polite dinner conversation, right? It's like, oh, no, talk about. And now that the movie's out, now you can say, okay, yeah, let's talk about this. Really, what are some things that we can do to keep our kids safe? What are some things? I was listening to this interview with Paul, and he was talking about how literally 1 in every 4 women at the minimum have been victims of sexual abuse as children. It's probably a lot higher than that. Those are just ones that actually say something about it. And so how can we start having these conversations? The narrative, and here's the answer too. You take a look at what is being force-fed to your families through big media, through Hollywood, et cetera, and this slow degradation of moral principles, and things like the TV series Cuties, which Netflix said, oh yeah, we'll take
The
Cuties,
little
but
kids.
Right,
yeah,
which
Little,
is why me and so many other people
10-year-olds
canceled it.
10-year-olds that are dressing up like strippers, yet they would turn down Sound of Freedom. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because unfortunately, this is more pervasive in this country than we like to admit. In fact, the United States, the one thing that we are able to track, things like child pornography. The United States is the #1 consumer and the #1 producer of child pornography in the world. Now, you can say that's because we have more computers here. Well, that and the fact that there's this level of unmitigated evil that is happening from these massive arrogance. They say that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Unfortunately, you've got a huge percentage of this country that see themselves as somebody with absolute power, right? You've got a certain checkbook, you've got certain connections, you've got some whatever else, and that level of arrogance inevitably leads to abuse of these children. So, and it's not just in trafficking in a third world country, it happens in our own backyards. And that's the narrative they don't want to talk about.
You know, I live just outside of the swamp, so I guess you can kind of tell where I am. And I see it, Paul. And Dave knows this. When I'm in the Army, active duty, and I moved here a couple of years ago, and we had we were basically forced to put our kids in private school. You know, we went from rural Kentucky where there was good family values there, right? And the public schools were okay, and we got to talk to the teacher. And so anyway, you come here, and the culture here is a lot different. I see what I would consider moral decay every day. I see it at the elementary school. My son, was in a basketball league or baseball league, and there's this certain sort of flag in the window. Or, and I think so. What you're saying, I'm not surprised by the fact that we're leading the way in child pornography as the United States of America, the greatest country that has ever been. Yet we have this huge decay of the moral fiber of our nation over the last couple of generations, let's say. Single family homes, or anyway, all of it, and it always boggles my mind of why is it happening, and how can I, in my little world, how I can push against it and just try to stop it.
It's I think we and our audience would rather know the truth, even if it's uncomfortable, than go on believing a reassuring lie. So I want to thank you for bringing the awareness out in this. I know that movie got held up. We don't have enough time to go into it, but it was held up for like 5 years, right? You guys completed this movie 5 years ago.
Yep.
And it took that long just to get distributed and put out, because I think there are evil forces working against you to keep that from getting out. So thank you for everything you're doing and getting this message out and sharing it, and everything you've gone through, and probably everything you're going to go through. It's not easy, I'm sure. And there's people that got your number, right?
Yeah, they do. I've as you said, I already had hit pieces out on me, and that's okay. I could just retire quietly and have a house on a river with a garden and a gun, and just not have to deal with people the rest of my life. But I think that at the end of this life, God would say, Paul, I gave you resources and experience that could truly transform the lives of many, many people. And I'm expected to use those in a way that I can be a good steward of those resources and of my experiences in a way that can help people heal and help humanity in any way that we can. So, yeah. And being on your show is part of that. I'm just super grateful for any opportunity to be able to share my heart and my experiences in a way that can help people keep their kids safe and help them heal in any way we can.
Well, thanks. And speaking of being a steward of good steward of resources, I would like to, one of the biggest things I like to give, and we have a lot of listeners who give to charities. The difficulty is finding a charity that, your money's actually going to work where you think it's going to work. Can you just tell people how we can, we want to give of our resources. First, we're going to go hug our kids.
Yeah.
Right. But two, we've got resources that we can put add to this fight. I think there's a lot of people that want to do that. So if you can just tell us,
would love that,
how we can do that, and then how your foundation operates.
Thank you, David. So two things. First of all, the Child Liberation Foundation. You can go to liberateChildren.org, liberateChildren.org. And get some information there to help keep your kids safe, learn about the programs that they're working on. You can donate $10, $10,000 or $1,000 or $100 or $5 a month, whatever you want to do to make a difference there. I will say this as well. The administrative costs of running the Child Liberation Foundation, I have committed to donate my own money into the foundation to cover that, thereby assuring that the money from all the donors that is coming in goes directly to creating programs of healing, to expanding the safe houses, to helping to pay for the rescue missions and the operations to take down the networks, etc. So those are all things that you can be assured that my donations into the foundation cover the basic admin costs, so that all of the money donated there to liberate children goes directly to the cause. So that's liberatechildren.org. You can also get in you can also go to liberating. There's an ing on this one, liberating humanity. And liberating humanity is not a 501c3 like Child Liberation, but you can still get involved there. You can that one is helping with healing retreats. It's investing in different healing retreats for adults who have dealt with some trauma and whatnot, that want to get the help that they need. That costs money for that, and the profits coming from those go back into the 501c3 and helping there. So if you want to get involved there, if somebody wants to get involved on a big level, donate at least $10,000. And as part of that $10,000 donation, I will commit to an hour of mentoring time on your business, if you're interested in that, or being on your podcast, or being on one of my podcasts for an hour, or looking at a deal that you have, etc. Or you can take that and actually join us on one of the trips to Latin America in using the money to help build some things that we're doing there. So those are all things that, if people want to get involved, you can go to Liberating Humanity or Liberate a Child or liberatechildren.org.
Awesome. And we will put those in the show notes for sure. So, all right. Well, hey, we really appreciate what you're doing, everything you do, and for giving us this time. And we're happy to spread the message. And I'm sure we're going to find a lot of interested listeners. So I'll just plug that movie. Go see the movie. If you haven't, take your children, probably 11 years old and up. It's a safe movie.
Yeah, very, very well done. I'm Italian, so I get a little emotional, and
He's a big baby.
No, I'm a big baby.
Yeah.
But that movie spoke to me, Paul, and I appreciate you. Appreciate everything you do, and it's phenomenal. And thank you for being our guest as well. It's Dave's such a connector, such a good looking dude up there.
We got connected by a connector. So I'm happy that worked out. Just like you said, Paul, you never know who you're going to meet, and you go somewhere and you meet people, and you meet people through that person, and here we are recording. Yeah. So, well, thanks, and giving us our best.
Will do.
We'll be following your story. I'm sure there's much more to it.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Paul. Super grateful to both of you. If I don't talk to you beforehand, have a fantastic holiday, and just send me a link whenever it's up and live, and I'll have my team go ahead and add it to the links on our Liberating Humanity website as well.
Sounds great. Will do.
Excellent.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you both.
Thanks, Paul.
All right.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening, everybody. If you'd like to have a conversation with us to see how you can become your own banker, or if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to tackle on a future episode, please send us an email to davidandpaul@theibcguys.com.
And subscribe and leave us a review if you're on Apple. Follow and leave us a 5-star review if you're on Spotify. And please share this with your friends. We'll see you next week.